One. Greetings, everybody, and welcome to the Dracovin Empire. Are you ready to dive back into the 6th world of Shadowrun? I hope you are. We're going to be diving through time and space to a world in a distant future that is an alternate version of our own. And heading to Europe this time to visit the Allied German states. If you are ready to join me, though, I'll open up the temporal spatial gate. Grab my hand, I'll guide you through it, and we'll end up in the 6th world. Remember, of course, your host and guide here, Dracovin. Give me a little bit of support here. Like, subscribe, ring the bell over on the YouTube side of things. Let me know, have you any ventures in the AGS? Or, what do you think of this? Let me know. Now, the gate calls. Grab my hand. To the 6th world we go. Whew. Europe's a little different now, and certainly speaking, Germany's not what it used to be. Germany as we know. Now being no longer the old country that it once was, and this new country in its place. The Federal Republic of Germany is gone. Allied German states in its place. But if we're going to learn how we got here, we should discuss something. Of course, that does start with sources and books and stuff like that if you want to dive into a couple more details. There are 3 books, of which one I may have used, but I did reference at least 2 of these books. Shadows of Europe is a pretty good one. The Germany source book, that's a 2nd edition book, so that's pretty old, but it will have some great things. And of course, my favorite of these, 6th World Almanac, does a really great job of highlighting a bunch of countries. I would have liked to have done more of these in Shadowrun. I would hope. Allied German States, AGS. In German, the Alliance Deutscher Länder, or ADL. It's a loosely organized collective of kingdoms, duchies, republics that were once the Federal Republic of Germany. Its capital is Hanover, no longer Berlin. It's a confederated republic. It does have a president, so the government is very similar in ways to its old government, but again, we'll talk about some of the differences here. It does have about 100 million people. Pretty good GDP of about 3.19 trillion. Of course, the major language is German, and we do have a bunch of major religions here. There's some non-denominational things, but evangelicals, German Catholics, Roman Catholics, Christian Orthodoxies, Muslims are all things there, including some neo-paganists, Wiccan. It does use both the euro and the Deutsche Mark. The Deutsche Mark, the DM, is equivalent to 1 million. The euro, 1 for 1 million. All right. Now we got those basic little bits of information out of the way. We understand this country a little bit more. I'll talk about all the states that are here. We'll kind of dive into those before we end here. So keep that in mind. We'll put that kind of on our back burner just a bit. So, what's the history of this place? How do we get where we are now? Well, the FRG, Federal Republic of Germany, had a lot of problems at the end of the 20th century, getting into the 21st century. There was a lot of civil unrest, unemployment, food shortages. 21st century, bringing a new century, didn't help out. In the first decade of this new millennium, there was wave after wave of ecological disaster. There was the catastrophic toxic floods of seawater that reshaped the northern coast, and then, of course, the explosion of the Canonum reactor in France that left Saarland a radioactive wasteland, creating an area we'll talk about a couple of times here today. So these were a series of crises that the German people faced. And it came to culmination in 2009 when the government was basically on the verge of collapse. The country went under martial law. In the midst of this, Vitus swept across the land, killed over 4 million people. And an awakening. And the unprecedented thing that 4 great dragons appeared in Germany's borders. 4. But Germany survived. And just 5 years later, in 2014, the military council had been under control because of martial law, basically returned control of the country to its people. This is a pretty big tell on the German people that the military council, when things were beginning to calm down a little bit, was like, we can give it back to you now. We don't want to keep this power. We're not going to transition this into like some other form of government. But this transition had challenges. Because of political unrest, Berlin, it descended into anarchy. By the end of 2014, basically, the city couldn't be restored to order. The German government erected a wall to contain this chaos and moved to Hanover. So the government was like, we're just going to wall you in and leave. Another 2 decades going by. UGE, Aegis II. Countless emergencies. Euro Wars. They happened in 2031. And all the shit that had happened to Germany hardened them and made them ready for a fight. Basically, a lot of crap was going on in Germany, and the people here were like, Russia, you're gonna mess with us? Oh no. Hell no. So the tenacious German forces were basically instrumental in stopping Russians' onslaught, and then the subsequent basically invasion of the Alliance for Allah after that. So the 1-2 punch of the European wars kept it back. Other important things to note during this time period, which we should know, in 2014 the German Catholic Church seceded from the Vatican and established the true Church of the Land of God and His Saints. Yep. Some other major areas are formed that we will talk about during this time period. But the next major event happened in the late 2030s. Because the country still wasn't stable. It was climbing back from all the chaos and finding stability. But, yeah, there was a lot, the establishment of the semi-autonomous metahuman states within the borders. We'll talk about all 3 of them. And in 2038, basically, political conflict that had been long simmering between the basically areas of Germany led to the southern states of Germany succeeding. This attempt was to exert control over the mega corporations and basically eventually led to this newer southern Germany nation to collapse and return to the AGS. But it was a kind of attempt at things that were going on. Yep. Now, all that said, we get to 2045. A lot of the old differences were set aside. And basically, Germany drafted a new constitution. This one would give the provinces a lot of latitude to govern how they saw fit, and basically gave their states power. A mostly decentralized central government that's only there for certain reasons. You know, most of the power went to the states, and this is a new nation, the Allied German states. They were born, with each state being kind of like we talk about the metahuman kingdoms being semi-autonomous. They are probably more autonomous than the main states, but they are still technically in the Allied German states. It's just, you know, a weird thing because the central government doesn't really have any sway, as per se. We get another 25 years. Riots over the internment of surge victims in Wittenberg, the war in the streets of Berlin, the panic of the crash 2.0, and of course, AGS continues. Marienbad. They succeeded. The Czech Republic. So one of the states left. And this was in 2063. So, yeah. The Marienbad Protectorate, basically under a Great Dragon, Schwarzkampf succeeded from AGS to the Czech Republic. So, yeah. And you do keep in mind things like the AGS military having to arrest the Karlstadt mayor, Hedwig Gaber, for basically attempting to use mercenary forces to attack the Black Forest Troll Kingdom, placing that under martial law, which it's still under, as of the 2070s. And of course, there some great dragons clash over Frankfurt, Lofriar, and Natchmeister, with Natchmeister dies. Oh, some things happen during this time. But we reached this kind of today, where, at least as of 4th edition today, and we don't have a lot of big major updates in 5th or 6th edition, technically for Germany, but we assume it's on the same front it is, and the AGS, economic, political powerhouse in a lot of ways, and it does hold a lot of Europe together. while it's sort of like this weird nation that's kind of held together by sticks, glues, and hopes, but for some reason, they work so well in that kind of state that they also end up being the glue which holds together Europe. Don't ask me how any of this works, but a country held together by spit and a prayer, in many ways, also holds together an entire continent. And also happens to be this powerful political force, even though most of the politics doesn't happen in their capital. Germany. Here's the current maps as of the, of course, 4th edition, just to give you an idea of what it looks like here. We can talk about the various provinces, locations, and stuff like this, but this is, of course, Germany. If you don't know about Germany, hey, hi, welcome. Let's get you a little bit on geography. It's a temperate place. Its elevation goes from kind of sea level to like around 3,000 meters around the Alps. It's got some dense temperate forest out of the land. It's, generally speaking, a pretty nice place. Got some rivers that you can enjoy. A lot of pleasantries. That is the areas of Germany. Got a number of rivers that passes through there, too. Still does have some connections with things like the SOX, the nuclear waste radiation zone. We talked about that a little bit there, but yeah. Sure. Let's talk about some major cities in Germany. I think that's probably a good place to kind of give an idea about things, because the cities are probably the best snapshot. I will eventually talk about a little bit of the states, but we know some chunks of that. That's more from like 3rd edition. 4th edition is nonsense. And Berlin. Let's talk a little bit about Berlin. It became a city of anarchists, but that was only half of it. The other half of it basically became under corporate control. So it was this East versus West battle in Berlin between the corporates and the anarchists. And that continued until the Crash 2.0. Basically, the Crash 2.0 screwed everything up. The corporate side was able to weather it better and build themselves back up. Basically give themselves and break this kind of stalemate that had formed. And basically, when things were being in this situation, the anarchists decided to basically force the hand of the megacorps with some kind of idea by basically threatening them with a nanotech threat that would be kind of a broken arrow situation. Broken arrow meaning like something equivalent to a nuclear bomb being on the ground and stuff like that. Out of the hands of people into the wrong hands. You lost one. In this case, nanotech kind of stuff like this. So basically, corporations united and basically sent everybody in. Blitzed them. Drones, soldiers, chemical weapons. They basically seized all of Berlin. And the threat the anarchists had, not that great. But, yeah, Berlin became united thanks to the Crash 2.0. And so the current corporations and AGS have basically been negotiating to try to unify the city. This is a new council that's elected to supervise and administer the newly named Free City of Berlin and kind of heal the wounds that are there, but there's definitely some ideology left over from anarchists that, probably a bunch of them were killed, but there are probably people that were related to them that maybe weren't killed that probably aren't very happy. So it may take quite a while for the city to actually really heal. The Venice of the North is the free Hellenistic city of Hamburg. It's underwater. Basically, there was catastrophic flooding that happened in the North Coast in the Black Tide of 2011. Kind of mentioned that. And instead of basically giving up geography, they basically, all these flooded lower levels, seal them off. You know what we are? Ground floor is now water level. That's what Hamburg did. So yeah, it's a hotbed of political activism, anti-megacorp currents. That's Hamburg. It has a strong sense of independence and has basically disapproved a lot of the big meddling of big corporations in the AGS. And of course, AGS is sliding towards a corporate democracy, and Hamburg's the big opposition to that. The Rhine-Ruhr is a mega sprawl. More than 35 million people, the largest urban sprawl in AGS. Remember I said there's about 100 million people, and we have an urban sprawl of 35 million. That's a third of the people in the country. You can find anything there. And they've got some great enclaves, like the corporate enclaves of Deutsburg, the Taxikon, the Fallows. Basically, it's German life all in one package. Auri lives there, the Great Dragon, from Saderkrupp headquarters in Essen. Basically, the most powerful megacorp on the planet. Saderkrupp rules Rhine-Ruhr. You're not getting beyond that. Big benefit of all that, of having the Great Dragon with the most powerful megacorp in your area, is trains run on time. Don't have to worry about that. You can see on the map there of the Rhine-Ruhr how big that is. That's a sprawl, a mega sprawl. So universities all combined together, though. That's one of the things in 2041 to the Ruhr University, which has over 300,000 students in it, and with top-notch education and excellent alchemy department. The Greater Frankfurt Sprawl encompasses the city of Frankfurt, Weißenbad, Mainz, Auschwitz, Mannheim, Ludwigshafen, and Heidelberg. I might butcher one of those two. Sorry, I'm a little rusty with my German. Back in high school. Due to the presence and roots of the multinational corporations AG Chemie and Frankfurt Bank Associations as major employer, this whole metroplex, which is also a member state of AGS, so this single area is its own member state. It's a city-state, you could almost call it like that, is also considered to be subservient to corporate masters. Rhine-Ruhr, them, and these corporate masters. And Ludwigshafen is the center of European chemical industry. And Heidelberg belongs to the Greater Frankfurt Sprawl, boasting the most famous arcane university. Hanover. Let's talk a little bit about Hanover. Capital of a very powerful nation in Europe. It's just kind of boring. It's there. It has an annual international computer and matrix fair. But remember, all that political power, it's in the hands of the various provinces. So all the big infighting, all the big things that are going on with major important decisions, they're out in provincial capitals. Here, kind of quiet. We'll talk about it a little bit, but yeah. But it will be also home to other portions of Europe. And we can then talk about Stuttgart, which is known for the plex of woods and streams. A beautiful sprawl, had a very business-like demeanor for a long time, center of manufacturing, and symbol of corporate restraint. But in the 2050s, a man named Christopher Steinmetz found a loophole in building ordinances and anchored half a dozen zeppelins in nearby the city of Ludwigsburg. He connected them with catwalks and dubbed his creation Cloud City. Cloud City now consists of over 48 zeppelins and is center of dramatic counterculture. It's home to tourist attractions, numerous casinos, restaurants, other sources of amusements. Artists, musicians, eccentrics make their home in Cloud City, and basically it's changed Stuttgart from a corporate meritocracy to the heart of the artistic community in AGS. Just by having a floating city of balloons. Really fast. Let's talk about it. Now, each individual area, province, state, has their own government. We can kind of talk about those, and I'll talk a little bit about them in a minute here. But when we look at the overall government, there's, of course, an elected president, and the big thing is the Bundesrat, the caucus that deals with all matters of national German member states and cooperative issues, which has a president in charge of that. I believe it's the same as Germany now. Don't quote me on that. I'm not as big on the current German government. Should have remembered to look that up. Anyway. So yeah. It is still the Bundesrat, appointed by the government of the 16 federated states. It's a legislative body, elected through direct elections and mixed member things. So yeah, it's very similar to what it was, with the president in charge of the Bundesrat. The Constitution has changed, more power in the states, but the overall government, if you want to look at Germany's government today, pretty much kind of the same. But, if there's an issue that can't be decked out, decided in the states, hey, it goes up to them. Sometimes they have to take care of some things. Like, this is something we have to take care of. Something that deals with international relations, military, those kind of things. Oh, hey, we have to. So hey, we can get involved in this. We can help out if you need us to. Oh no, that's a relaxing day. It's also home to the government bodies that are important, such as the Federal Office of Homeland Security and a bunch of polyclats. So there's a bunch of the government stuff in Hanover, and that's where the main source of government is, and that's where we have the Bundesrat. The government as it is. I just use another picture of the government. Alright. Let's take a short tour of the states, the regions of Germany as an idea. There's the Northern German League, which is the kind of grain silo with reforestation, other restoration things to clean up the area. It has a lot of pollution from the, North Sea and stuff like that. There are still large stretches of the shore that's hopelessly polluted, but agri-corp greenhouses are obviously in the area. So that's kind of the area about that. It's still the kind of breadbasket. It's got two ports with Bremen and Hamburg. We talked about the Free City of Hamburg, with its flooded area. Bremen is also a major port in that region. We move on, of course. Hanover is in this region, in the north. We talked about that. Current capital. Talked a little bit of the Duchy of Moravia on the Baltic Sea coastline. It also has the Isle of Rug, and it borders Poland. It's an elven duchy, so it's one of the metahuman small kingdoms. It's a strong supporter of ecological interests throughout Europe. It is modeled after the other elven nations with an aristocratic basis. And all government entities are hands in three noble houses of elves, Ranka, Sarenti, and Karam. That's there. In the eastern side, there's the free state of Thuringia and the Duchy of Saxony. The Duchy of Saxony is the place where there's a lot of tabloids. It's basically it resurrected dueling culture and nobility parties. So, big parties, duels, and stuff happen. So, if you get some tabloids in the Duchy of Saxony, that's the place to go there. But that region also has the free state of Thuringia, with Jena being there, top-notch cyberware manufacturer there. Then we head to Brandenburg. It's kind of connecting to Eastern Europe with about an inbound, outbound, and it's a big smuggler place. Basically, people that are, old bunkers from the Euro Wars, hidden storehouses are really great for people coming in and out with smuggling things. The Polish cappers use a lot of these. And of course, Berlin is in that region. We talked about what happened in Berlin. If we go kind of in the center of this state, we have the Backisch Platz, which borders the contaminated Sox region, the radioactive region there. So it's a rural area that's been sparsely populated, basically because they fear what happened after that 50 years of fallout. It hasn't really been cleaned up as much as people want. So even after 50 years, people just don't there. Unfortunately for them. It just keeps out of it. And of course, then we have our Schur, which was, at least as of 4th edition, still under martial law. Basically, they want to leave Karshi to the Bandersplatz jurisdiction, but it doesn't appeal to the Hanover politics. That's what the Supreme Court would like the idea of. Basically, things have not been going well there. Franconia is in this region, too. It's got some higher economy. It's basically got some agri-courts, some big things going on there, but it's kind of on the rise. The Hase and Naru is a premier spot for weekend trips. The trips, buzzing away from the financial capital of AGS. So it's not the first class resorts, but it has tourism. It's the main state or main income of the state. So it's got a family friendliness if you go to Hesse-Nassau. So there you go. A lot of hot springs and stuff and hot spots. Hot spring spots. We head to the west. We have the free state of Westphalia, which is ruled by, hey, remember when I talked about that time the German church broke away from the Vatican? Yeah, they have a state. The free state of Westphalia. It is a basically religious state for them. It's basically under the leadership of Cardinal von Harriman, preaches a conservative stance regarding metahuman magic, and basically the CCG or GCC, the German Catholic Church, has restated the state according to his beliefs. It's nearly metahuman free and non-awakened state. And of course, Surge tested it a lot and led some violence. The Grand Duchy of Westerhind Luxembourg is ruled by the dwarf Grand Duke Alphon III of the Duchy, WRL, and borders what's left of eastern Luxembourg after the big disaster with the Sox. So yeah, it has a lot of refugees from that region, and also had a long dormant volcanoes erupt in its region. So yeah, it acquired some territories, adding to it as part of the French government's compensation to them for the disaster. So yeah, and they've been trying to revitalize their land. So they are very agribusiness and exporting volcanic materials. Of course, there's the SOX zone, this SAR Special Administration Zone, which is the no-go zone that's kind of between what's left of Luxembourg, that France, German area, and kind of being taken care of. So keep that in mind. I've talked about it before in other videos, but just know, big, horrible radioactive area looked after by like corporations and a number of heads of state and stuff like that, and being cleaned up. Anyway, in the south, there's the Black Forest Troll Kingdom, which is a problem child to a degree, because it has very few friends, either domestically or internationally. And their reigning king, King Berthold, went missing in July 21st of 2061, leaving the High Chancellor in charge in his absence, with just a little bit of problems there. Wuttenberg is a member state that of the disbanded South German League. It has a very anti-metahuman basis in the common among the population, and it reached new heights during the Surge. Yeah, so remember, I said there was violence in Wuttenberg. Yeah, there was during the Surge. Other areas, Stuttgart is a sprawl down in that region, and the political and financial capital of the state. Employs a lot of individuals in that region. The Free State of Bavaria is down there, and has a lot of its own chaos. Basically, every time some kind of catastrophe hits Europe, Munich is flooded with refugees, head to Bavaria. So the Bavarian capital has turned into a melting pot. And of course, it's had its own issues. A lot of the prejudices between these groups has surged over, especially during things like the Surge. So yeah. There you go on that. Let's finish up by talking just a little bit about some of the underworld and maybe some of the corporate groups that are, certainly speaking, there are a lot of big corporations in Germany. You're not going to get beyond it. It's one of those things that I could just list the corporate influence, but hey, Larrin and his companies out of there. Just saying that, Larry. I say his name so badly, so often. I'm going to take a drink while... Lafayette. It's Lofwyr. Lafayette. Head of Sabercraft. Certainly. Anyway, on the crime side of things, there are two main groups that dominate Germany's underworld. The Russian Glory, and of course the coalition of European crime families that are the current version of the Mafia. The Russians kind of have a strong control of the north and east, and the Mafia in the south and west. It's one of those things to keep in mind that the Mafia kind of typically extended out a lot of different ways into all of Europe and being more than just like the town. But I'll talk about maybe the Mafia and the Bori and the great big criminal elements in the future. There are other organized groups of crime there. Organized crime, the Grey Wolves, the Albanian Fairs, the Yakuza, the Triads, the Romanian gangs. Cologne is Triad territory. Dusseldorf is Yakuza territory. So there's a lot there. It's also got gangs. The Audubon has problems with motorized gangs. The Rutenburger. Modern types of highwayman, biker gangs, both go-gangers, and more traditional outlaw motorcycle clubs. In the urban areas, the Rhine-Ruhr sprawl and Berlin are notorious for street gangs. I mean, Rhine-Ruhr is huge. Berlin has its own troubles. So street gangs in the massive amounts in those areas. And notorious for them. Not really going to get much control. Anyway, but there you go. There's Germany in a nutshell. Well, a little bit more than a nutshell, but you get the point. I hope you've enjoyed diving into the AGS, the Allied German states, and learning a little bit about what Shadowrun modern Germany is in the, basically, the version. Granted, there's a little bit of, like, updates that we could get into 5th and 6th edition we really haven't had, but it's probably not any major changes that we can expect at this point in time, especially being mentioned, but Germany has weathered a lot. Yeah, the states have really gained power and have all the strength there, with all the different zones, but, you know, we have a bunch of territories, a bunch of things that are under their control. They make do. Their making do has proven very well. They're incredibly strong militarily. Hey, you know, all these German people, they went through a lot of shit together. They may have their own different ways in their different states, but when it comes together, they're willing to get together and get shit done. Big economy, big military, big strength, big glue that keeps Europe kind of stable. Even though you look at Germany itself, it's like, how they're staying together stable? I don't know. I mean, they lose one of their, you know, states. So it is one of those things, as I said, spit and glue keeping it together in a lot of ways. But it also ended up being that spit and glue Europe. And it's just this fascinating kind of like connection between the two things that I just love learning about and talking about. And, you know, just makes it an interesting place to have runs it. There's probably a lot of shit going on between the mega corporations, corporate interests, political interests, criminal elements, all mixing together here with both European and smaller interests of basically Germany, European, and even state interests that can cause this mass amount of things and have plenty of opportunities to run the ship. You pick up that Germany source book, one of these other books that talks about it, and plan for some runs. We'll visit good old Deutschland, or the Alliance Deutschland, Deutschlander Lander, as the Germans. That'll be for today. I hope you enjoyed diving once again into Shadowrun, the 6th War, and learning about it. If you want to see more of my stuff, remember to check it out on Twitch and YouTube. It's a great place for it. Which is when I go through things live. That's video games, tabletop related stuff where I do these kind of videos, live plays of games, discussing tabletop Saturdays at 6 over on YouTube. All my tabletop stuff is uploaded usually at 4 in the afternoon EST, but schedule changes are mentioned there. Social media, though, is a good place to keep an eye out where that schedule is, any kind of changes, what's going on in my life, any kind of interesting things, some cat pics occasionally. I love it too. That's my Discord. Blue Sky, X/Twitter, and of course, I do put some stuff over on my About page of YouTube. So check those out. But do remember, appease the algorithm. Like, subscribe, ring the bell. Let me know what you think of Germany. Would you be inspired by the AGS to have some adventures there, had adventures there? What do you think of all this? And how do you think they somehow managed to keep both themselves and Europe together as a kind of force, and being this kind of very powerful force? Even though somehow they're this, you know, and you're kind of like, how are they keeping together? How are they strong? How have they managed this? Somehow they have. They managed to make it work. Good for them. Let me know what you think of all that kind of stuff, too. That's kind of a fun thing to discuss. And I'm going to going. And until the next time, I bid all of you out there a deep and wonderful farewell.